Hello there. My name is Leo Bell, and I am the Wellbeing Lead here at Sutton Uplift. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be doing a short workshop on overcoming frustration and irritability. This is a workshop that we run online as well at Sutton Uplift, usually between 12:30 and 2:30, and occasionally in the evenings outside of 9 to 5 as well. But this is an online resource that you can pick up at any time. And this is the long version of the workshop. And we will also have this video broken up into multiple, like shorter segments, as it were, so that you can either watch this full thing or you can go through it in little bite-sized chunks and pick whichever bit seems most relevant to you at that time. So obviously, normally this is run as a group workshop, so there is no one here apart from myself. So confidentiality is not so important in here. But what I will say is have a pen and paper handy. Feel free to pause this, rewind, go back to bits. I will fill in the gaps when there's areas where we would ask the room questions. I'll put in my own sort of 2 cents. And yeah, we'll see how we get on. But do have a pen and paper handy. Do make notes. Do go back, listen to bits multiple times if that's what's required. Not everything in this workshop is going to be useful to you, but even if you only take away a couple of bits, then you'd be surprised how helpful these things can be. But maybe everything will apply to you. That'd be great. Okay, so the aims for today are we're going to first reflect on our anger, how it affects us and our well-being. Then we will start to look at, we will start to identify unhelpful thinking styles and find some alternatives to those thinking styles. We'll also understand, better understand the excuses that we make for us sort of reacting in ways that are not advantageous to our lives, as it were, and taking responsibility for making changes so that this doesn't happen anymore. And then finally, we will do some mindful body scan exercises for relaxation and awareness, so sort of grounding. So first we'll introduce ourselves and share something that we want to take away from this workshop. Obviously, you can fill in the time if you want to just say something out loud to yourself, but I will go. My name is Leo Bell. I am Wellbeing Lead at Sutton Uplift, and something I would like to take away from this workshop is how to what to do when I feel like I have no patience. So sometimes if I don't eat properly or if I don't get enough sleep, I can become quite short. So sort of someone says, how you doing? I might just be like, fine, I'm good, kind of thing. Move on, next question, as it were. And I can be quite snappy and not have as much patience as maybe I should. So knowing, having some tips on how to do that would be useful, or how to manage that. So let's first talk about what anger and irritability is. So I'm going to read out some statements about anger, and I want you just to have a little think about whether you agree or disagree with the statement, or whether you think maybe there's a middle ground. Maybe they're both right. Maybe they're both right a little bit, but not one, especially more than the other. So first question: it is bad to get angry. So it is bad to get angry. Do we agree or disagree with this idea? Well, anger itself is a natural emotion. It is a reaction to a threat, or it is a reaction to circumstances, but anger itself is natural. It's not something that you can tuck away and have hidden away for the rest of your life. It's perfectly natural, but it's how we react to that anger, how we react to that feeling of frustration, of irritability, that can cause harm to ourselves or to others. Okay, statement 2. Only violent people feel really angry. So only violent people feel really angry. Do we agree or do we disagree with this idea? So long story short, violence is an action. It is not anger. Anger is an emotion. Violence is an action. So they are different things entirely. You can be angry and express your anger in a non-violent way. So it doesn't necessarily, violence is an action, like we're saying, whereas anger is more of an emotion, which it can lead to violence, but you can also be angry and it not lead to violence. Plus, there's also the fact that anger can be towards the self and can be passively expressed. So you can feel very angry at oneself, and this doesn't turn out into violence at all. It can just turn into years of self-hatred almost, and beating oneself up so that, oh, I'm useless, I'm never going to amount to anything kind of anger, which is obviously not violent, but it's anger directed at the self. Next statement, statement 3. If you feel angry, it is best to blow up rather than keeping it all inside. So if you feel angry, it is best to blow up rather than keep all of the anger inside. So we've got to think whether we agree or disagree with this statement. Now, it's kind of I'll read what we have here is anger is important to be communicated, but that is most effectively done with I statements, which show that you own your emotions. Knowing that this may be your stuff and discussing it with respect and compassion is crucial. It can be helpful to express raw emotions when you're alone. We will come back to that later. So, is it best to blow up rather than keeping it all inside? Well, it's all about how this blowing up looks like. We don't want to blow up and have violence. We want to blow up and when we blow up, we want to communicate what's going on, why we feel like we might blow up, kind of thing. And ideally, we want to get this before you get to the stage where you feel like I'm going to explode. Okay, so next statement. You are more likely to feel angry if you have taken alcohol. So you are more likely to feel angry if you have drunk alcohol or have alcohol in your system. So do we agree with this or disagree with this idea? The short answer is yes. Barriers are lowered and all emotions can feel heightened when you are under the influence of alcohol. Next statement. If you feel angry with someone, they must have done something wrong. So if you feel angry with someone, they must have done something wrong. So do we agree or disagree with this statement? I mean, the short answer in this is no. They don't necessarily have to have done something wrong for you to be angry at someone. Self-awareness in this respect is key. They may have done something to hurt you on purpose. I mean, it is possible that they may have done something to hurt you on purpose, but people express themselves individually due to individual experiences. And what I'd like to say in this respect is that there's this old Buddhist saying that there isn't one world with 8 billion people on it. There's 8 billion worlds. And understanding that just because something's happened, just because someone might have done something, it doesn't necessarily mean it's directed at you anyway. It could be due to a series of factors that you're not aware of. Okay, next statement, and the last statement, in fact. I have good reason to be angry because of things other people have done to me. Okay, so I have good reason to be angry because of things other people have done to me. Now, this is quite a personal one, and you might agree or disagree with it, depending on your life circumstances right now, and what has happened to you in the past. But I will say, so anger is itself a natural reaction when we feel that we've been mistreated or taken advantage of. But if this anger continues into all areas of your life, then it will cause difficulties for you. So kind of what is being said here is that maybe you do have some good reason to be angry because of what's happened to you in the past, but ultimately you should be trying your best to not let this anger at this person or at this life event spill over into all areas of your life, because it will just ultimately cause a lot of difficulties to you. I mean, I've discussed in other talks about the concept of a backpack and all of our stresses and emotions go in this backpack, and having anger towards other people and hate towards other people and not letting go of negative feelings towards these individuals, that's weight in your backpack. And if you are going to carry that around all day with you, then it's going to make that backpack heavier and it's going to make getting through the day harder. Okay, so we've just looked at a whole bunch of different, I mean, it's written in notes as myths, but I suppose it's just a different viewpoints on anger, would be how I'd sort of word it. But what actually is anger? Let's try and understand better what anger really is. Itself, anger is a perfectly normal human emotion which everybody experiences, um, and anger is there to its purpose is to help us cope with threat, hurt, and frustration. It is there to be a positive and constructive aid to survival, and it is there to warn us that we may be being exploited or that our well-being is being threatened and that we need to take action. It can finally provide us with a vital boost of physical and emotional energy. Anger energizes and mobilizes our strength and concentration, which helps us to deal with conflict situations. So let's consider this from the angle of, let's not consider this from our 2022 lives, but let's try and travel back in time a little bit and let's think about this from more of a hunter-gatherer tribal sort of setting. So there's a lot of information out now that suggests that humans used to exist in packs, so in tribes of 100, 200 or so, something that kind of idea, and we would exist in mini populations like that. So let's try and examine how these emotions might have been useful in that context, us being social creatures in these tribes. So if someone, let's say there was a hunt and there was a big incoming of food ready for the whole tribe, and someone took your share of the food, that anger is a response to the unfairness of the situation, and it's designed to make you take action. So if you did not feel that anger, then that person could take the mickey, as it were, and take your share of the food every time food came in. Once they do it once and they get away with it, they might do it again and again and again. But the anger that you were able to feel and then you're able to express would maybe put that individual off taking your share of the food again. So you could sort of see, and this is kind of the sense of, and also imagine in the sense of, if someone in your family was attacked, you want to be able to feel that anger in order to have the physical energy to protect the people that you care about. So there is a reason, there is a greater purpose, as it were, to why we feel anger. Anger itself is an emotional response to threats or having important goals blocked. Although people typically assume that anger is something bad, all emotions are important and anger serves an important function, as I was just sort of saying. It can motivate us to act when we perceive a threat, and it can help us address what is blocking our goals and help us to seek ways to solve a situation. So as I kind of have said a couple of times now, anger is not necessarily bad. It is not necessarily a bad emotion. Instead, it is about the way that we respond to it and express it that can then sort of say to people, oh, anger is bad, you shouldn't feel angry, kind of thing. In many ways, you could sort of consider it a bit like fire. There's a saying that fear is like fire. In some ways, anger is like fire. If you are able to utilize it, then you can use it as a very powerful tool to help you get to where your goals are, to where you're trying to get to. However, if you let it spiral out of control and you're not able to keep your anger in check, then the fire will burn you out, as it were. It will take over, it will completely engulf you, and you will not be getting closer to your goals because you'll be turning into a big pile of ash. So it's all about how we respond to the anger and express it. However, the issue is we're not taught about how to handle these feelings very often. Often it's don't feel that way, apologize kind of things. And what happens is we end up blocking our feelings. And when we feel our boundaries are not being respected, we end up acting defensively. We haven't been shown what the right way to sort of communicate this emotion is. We're just told don't feel it, kind of thing. For example, we can express anger in a way that helps us work towards a solution, or we can shout and yell, which might not be good for our relationship with others, our career, or our physical and mental health. So think about, if you are feeling angry about something, you could either express that in a calm, calculated, assertive manner and sort of make it clear what it is that's making you angry and what you really would like to help make your life less frustrating, as it were, to keep that frustration down, because that's ultimately where the anger is coming from, is the frustration, either that you've been wronged or that you cannot achieve your goals because of something that is wrong, that's in the way. And you can see there's a difference between approaching someone in a calm, calculated, assertive manner than there is to just shouting and screaming and saying this has to be this way, rather than this has been making me feel this way, and I'd really much prefer it to be like this because of X, Y, and Z. And the other one is you better stop doing that, or we better start doing this. Neither of which they're not going to get the right response because you're dictating suddenly, and then your anger might get matched with anger coming from the other party. I mean, anger itself as an emotion is one that we want to try and make sure it doesn't, like the fire, it doesn't start to burn too much and burn out of control. Because if anger becomes too strong, if it happens too often, if it lasts too long, it will start to spoil your relationships, and it will spoil to work, and in its worst case scenarios, it can lead to outright violence and aggression, which is not going to be conducive to you getting the solution that you want, realistically. So what causes anger? What causes frustration? What causes irritability? And whenever we're looking for the causes of any of these things, it's we often we try to look for we always try to look for the answer. We always try to look for causes. And the thing is that it can be caused by many things. Anger can be so it's not necessarily this one thing has made you angry. It's usually a cumulative set of things that have made you angry. Like sometimes if you don't have a good night's sleep and you haven't eaten well, then things that might not make you angry might suddenly make you angry. But then if you have a lot of stresses going on in your life, then it might not take very much for you to feel like you're out of control of your anger or your frustration or irritability or anything like that. So things like life stresses are going to make you more likely to get angry. So things such as money or housing problems or difficulties in your relationship. You're reacting to external things such as people or other events. So this could be something in the news. So maybe you're into politics and the politicians and something you don't like, or maybe you're very worried about a particular war that could be going on, or anything like that. And all these things, all financial costs of living sort of stuff, and all these things can sort of pile up into your backpack and just can make you more likely to blow up, for lack of a better phrase, with anger. So there's the external stuff, there's the life stresses, there's also thoughts and worries about our own personal problems, and then there's also the past. There's upsetting memories from the past that sort of can bubble up to the surface that can lead to angry thoughts and feelings. However, it is important to note that it is not people or events that necessarily make you angry. It is your reaction to them that makes you angry. So the reactions may vary because we may be more likely to be angry by nature. We never have learnt to control our anger and express our feelings more helpfully. We may come from families that are poor at handling emotion and talking, or where levels of the anger are typically high. As children, we model the world around us. We model the world that our parents or our carers give us. If we're in if we're in a family where those emotions are never really sort of talked about, they're just sort of seen and then yelled about, and then so let's say you have a parent that is not very good at communicating their anger, and then every week they have a big row. You're sort of learning that as a behavior in surviving in the world. You're learning, oh, I hold it in until this moment, and then I blow up, kind of thing. And that's why we have these sort of workshops to sort of teach these tools, and oh, this is what you do when you feel this way, rather than yelling at your loved ones, kind of thing. And all of this can contribute to people having difficulties overcoming managing their frustrations, their anger, their irritability. Yeah, okay. So as I mentioned, anger is perfectly natural. It is something that you cannot just shake off. You cannot just ignore it. It's something that you feel. And this is an example of that. So this is showing that we feel anger and irritability physically. Like it's a physical thing. It's not something you can choose. As you can see, when you start to feel angry, it affects your parts of you get hotter than other bits. It's not just a feeling, it's an entire body state. It affects our mood. It can affect the way we think, feel, and behave. Um, as you can see in this image, it's felt mostly in the upper half of the body when you feel anger. So you might get a headache, you could get a ringing or a rushing sound in the ears, your breathing will speed up, you might feel nauseous, your face might become red and flushed, or it might suddenly drain you, become very pale. Anger itself is very intense compared to other feelings. Like, so for example, happiness radiates throughout the body, but you can see anger is very much concentrated on the upper half there. Anger itself triggers the body's fight or flight response, so emotions such as fear, excitement, and anxiety also trigger this response as well. So there can be a bit of confusion sometimes. I very often talk to individuals who will feel anxious before they undertake something, and I often tell them that fear and anxiety, excitement and fear have the same emotions. It's just how you're interpreting them. Sometimes you think you might be fearful, but in reality, you're just really excited to do something. Like obviously there is that fear that sort of lurks in the background, but ultimately you're excited to be doing something. So all of these things kind of link in. The response, so feeling this aggression, having this fight or flight response, it causes our adrenal glands to release and inundate the body with stress hormones, so adrenaline and cortisol in particular. When this happens, the brain diverts blood away from the gut and towards the muscles in preparation for some sort of physical movement to run or to fight, which is there to help the individual protect itself. So your heart rate, your blood pressure, your respiration, your body temperature rise, your breath will go up, and the skin starts to perspire. All of this is designed to engage your body's physical side. So your body is physically primed to do something because of you feeling this way, this anger. And what happens is very often once that threat has lessened, you feel calmer. So whenever there is someone has red mist or anything along those lines, is unable to control their anger, you might have seen that they say that person basically needs a timeout kind of thing. They need to get away from the situation for 20 to 30 minutes. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. But once that person is removed from that situation in which the thing that's making them angry is, you place some distance between the subject and the trigger, then that person just feels calm automatically, just as time passes by. But however, there is obviously the issue when you start to it's a problem if you start to experience anger all the time, if it's consistent, if it doesn't seem to ever go away. Because what's happening is your body is constantly doing this flight or flight response. It's constantly in this state. So you're constantly producing these stress hormones. So you can imagine that this starts to negatively affect your physical well-being in the long run. You're not supposed to be chronically stressed. Stress is something that you're supposed to feel from time to time that triggers you to do something about it. So I feel stressed about X, Y, or Z, so I'm going to do, like, let's say you're stressed about a particular problem. That stress is designed to sort of motivate you to solve the problem. But if you have this feeling constantly, of this constant stress, this constant anger, then you start to fall apart. Your backpack becomes too heavy to have it carrying around all day. So you start to get things like headaches, digestive issues. You can tax your nervous system to the point that you always feel anxious, or you always feel depressed, or you swing wildly between the two. And over a really long period of time, this sort of low level aggression, low level cortisol, low level adrenaline always flowing through your system can lead to heart attack or stroke, because your body is not designed for this. It's not designed to feel this tension all the time. Okay, so we're now going to do a short exercise. Close your eyes and imagine yourself in a situation where you became angry or irritable in the last 2 weeks. So I'm going to give you an example. Well, I'm going to give you a few. So I'll give you a second just to think about some situations which you may become angry or irritable in the last 2 weeks. And if you're having trouble, then I'll give you some examples. Is someone cuts the line while you're in a queue in a supermarket? Someone cuts you off while driving? You see someone not following the rules in a place where you have been patiently following the rules. Okay, so I want you to sit with that feeling. I want you to sit with that feeling of anger, frustration, being irritable. And I want you to have a little think about how you physically feel in that situation. And it's the more that you think about how you physically feel, I want you to sort of notice, are you starting to feel like you were either in that situation, if you were able to come up with something in your past, or how you might feel in that situation? So do you start to feel hot at all? Do you sort of start to feel tense, like your shoulders are raised at all? Maybe some of your muscles are a bit more tense. Maybe your fists are clenched. Any of these sort of things. And it's important for us to really pay attention to this. So we really want to pay attention to how we physically feel when we get angry. If you haven't opened your eyes, you're more than welcome to now. So I want you to think about how you experience anger in your body. So I want to ignore this concept that anger is just this magic thing that is in your head, and then you suddenly you feel angry. I want you to start thinking, I'm feeling angry, so I'm starting to feel this tension in my shoulders. I'm starting to feel hot. I'm starting to notice my hands clench. I'm starting to notice my muscles flex. I'm starting to feel like I can't sit still, kind of thing. I want you to notice all of these things rather than just, I am angry. And part of the way that we'll do this is on a piece of paper, draw an outline of a body like you have in the example on the slide here, and write down where in your body you experience the feeling of anger and what you are feeling. For example, this could be a tension or a pain. You may also write down what your thoughts were. So if I was to do this, also, if you don't want to draw, you can just list what you felt in different parts of your body. So I'll do a quick example. So the thing that I notice when I think about being angry is I'm going to mess this up, but shoulders. So what am I writing here in my best handwriting? My shoulders went up noticeably when I was thinking about me being angry. My tension, I go like this. I get more tense. I'm like, notice that my shoulders raise and my whole body's like, it's like I'm almost to jump. That's what it feels a little bit, right? And so that's my example. Doing this exercise is very helpful. It can it's quite useful in the sense that it can help us think about warning signs, so that signal that we started to get angry. So maybe next time I notice that my shoulders are raised, that's a trigger for me. That's a signal to me to be like, oh, I'm starting to get angry. What can I do to help relax myself? Similarly, it can help us to think about how we address the sensations that we feel. So if we feel tense, we could, example, give ourselves a little shoulder massage. Or if we feel hot, we can press something cold into our head, maybe splash our face with cold water, which should have a calming effect. It may sound a bit complex, but pressing something cold on our head or even submerging our head in water leads to a dive response. Your heart slows down, your blood flow is redirected to your brain and heart. This can make us think more logically and feel calmer. The response may take about 30 seconds to set in, and if you put your head in water, for example, using a bowl, please don't use ice cold water, but instead use slightly cool water. I think this is a really good idea. It's great because it does two things in particular. First thing is that it does all of the nice things. It does the water. It will cool you down, and which will be really useful in terms of like getting the nervous system relaxing, trying to get away the feeling of heat that you get when you're angry. But the other things that it do is secondly, it makes you more present. The cold water should shock you back into the room, as it were, so you're not just trapped in your angry thoughts. It brings you, oh, I'm in the kitchen, or I'm in the bathroom, or wherever I am with a sink. And then the final thing it does is that it removes the situation. So unless you're having an argument in the kitchen or the bathroom, and if you're having an argument in the kitchen, you can go to the bathroom, but you're removing yourself from the situation, and you're physically putting distance between you and whatever's triggering your anger, which is always a good thing. Okay. So just to sum up what we've been talking about, when anger gets out of control, it can have an enormous negative effect on our physical and mental health. It can also hurt a person's career and relationship with others. Anger sets off signals in our bodies, our emotions, our thinkings, and our actions. The goals for anger management strategy is not to suppress these emotions, but to reduce the heat that is associated with our emotional feelings by looking at alternatives that can help manage them better. And that is a little bit more of what we're going to be covering in the next bit, where we're going to talk about some more strategies to help deal with what to do when we feel this anger. So I'm going to stop now.